Afrika, der ser vi noe som på en måte egentlig er universelt. Men der har altså ikke skriften satt så mye lokk på dette med rytmer. Og så det verdiskapinga i et samfunn, med all respekt, begynner ikke på børsen, altså. Det begynner ikke på børsen. Det begynner i mennesker som får strengen til å dirre, og der rytmen sitter.
They say in Africa, or some people used to say, that Africans are born with rhythm. This isn't actually true. They're trained into rhythm. If you compare it to Europe, it's more that the Europeans have lost rhythm. It's not that the Europeans weren't born with rhythm, they've lost it. And the Africans still maintain a sense of rhythm. Now this toy teaches children, it's specifically a child's toy, it's not for adults, but it teaches children to play polyrhythms. There's two rhythms that you can get out of this instrument. One is a shake, and the other is this twisting movement, bounce, catch, and then it combines into a polyrhythm.
Lyd og rytme, dansen i oss, som så drastisk forskjønnes etter hvert så vi møter et samfunn. Den er i selve utgangspunktet. Der har vi alle ligget i våre mødre og fått tak i de første livsprosessene i rytmer.
The sound of the heartbeat of the child and the mother can create polyrhythms. So in a sense, child's exposed to polyrhythmic music. Every child, even not only Africans. But in Africa, what happens is after the child's born, they're kept for about 2 or 3 years on the mother's back. So if the mother's dancing, the child is exposed to music straight away. So usually by the time the child is walking, it's also dancing.
Satt i veven med lange nase og vrang, så setter hun på både stikke og tråd, så let hun den veven gang. Hanen fikk både vips og kufte, og høna fikk ei eire, kjette og fikk ei nasa duk, og så rokker ikke veven meire.
Hoppe, 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 napp. Hva sier deg?
Det å være sammen med barn, det er antagelig noe med å være ved livets kilde på en måte, altså. Å kjenne dristigheten i en unge som på en måte tar livet hemningsløst, som tar gråten helt ut, og som tar latteren helt ut, og så stuper kråke på en sånn måte at du tar hele livet ut, altså, ikke sant? Opptatt av ekthet, det autentiske. Altså det er denne her bredden i registeret, og denne, ja, ærligheten på å leve. Målet for veldig mange da, slik som de opplever verden, er å bli voksen. Og jeg husker mange lærere sier når de skal begynne på skolen, det første de skal lære, er å kunne sitte stille. Selvfølgelig er det viktig å kunne sitte stille, det gjør 2-3-åringer også det. Ofte dypt konsentrert og sitte musestille kjempelenge hvis de er opptatt av noe. Men altså, sitte disiplinert stille etter hverandre er en sånn nøkkel. Og våre viltre kropper blir altså mer problematiske enn en ressurs for verden. Og så er det det at de langsomt på en måte sosialiseres inn i roller. Slik at når vi ender opp som voksne, mange av oss, så tenker vi ikke over engang at vi ikke lenger har noe puls i oss. Det går så langsomt. Det går så forsiktig, og kanskje til og med stolte at vi så å si behersker tenkningen uten på en måte å kunne kjenne nødvendigheten av å ta den ut i en kropp. Det er rytmer i alle fenomener i verden. Altså. Det er rytme altså, i å snakke, det er rytme i å skrive, det er rytme i å sykle, det er rytme i å stå på ski, sparke fotball, danse, musikk. Det er jo åpenbart rytme i å strikke. Det er rytme overalt altså, i hva vi foretar oss. Og egentlig er det sånn at livet kan ikke organiseres uten at dette elementet finnes. Og i Afrika så er dette så tydelig. Det kommer sånn til overflaten på en måte. For det er ikke lagt lokk på det gjennom kulturer som legger lokk på sansingen og sier at nå er det snakk om musikk, nå er det snakk om dans, nå er det snakk om språk, nå er det snakk om gymnastikk. Altså det henger sammen. Så der får altså disse rytmene komme til overflaten til de grader.
We've lost something in Europe. We've lost the fact that music was part of everyday life, part of a religious experience. Music has been more and more pushed into an entertainment role, into a corner, and it's only to go there on a Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening, and have a dance.
Musikk er ikke bare noe vi hører. Musikk kan også leve veldig sterkt inni oss. Vi kan bare tappe den ut hvis vi vil. Tilfeldig at mens vi sier liksom koget og ergo sum, jeg tenker altså lever jeg, som er liksom nøkkelen til forståelse av tradisjonell intellektuell vesteuropeisk kultur, så sier afrikaneren da jeg danser og så lever jeg. Salt ergo sum. At det er selve det eksistensielle grunnlag, som ikke betyr at de bare går rundt og danser, men at de får altså mulighet til å mestre livet, at de får oppdrift altså, ut fra hoppkanten altså. Hvis altså oppdriften mangler, så går det detter som en stein i bakken. nordmenn bruker nesten ikke kroppen sin når de går. Altså hoftene er jo dønn stive. Armene beveger seg nesten ikke sant? Så går de i sånne rykk. Ikke sant? Ikke sant? Og de går, og de går, og de har altså, kroppen er på en måte ikke til stede når de går. Og de har ikke så stor oppgave. De skal kanskje bære en dokumentmappe inn på toget. Det er ikke noe mer. Det er ikke noe større oppgave enn det. Og så kommer vi til Kamerun. Og så får du borer og kvinner. Disse høye, flotte, vanvittig flotte kvinnene, som kan altså bære opp til en 20-30, noen sa til bort mot 40 kilo på hodet, i enorme, sånne, nesten si hodepynter. Altså der er det fat, og mat, og bananer, ikke sant? I en salig blanding. Tungt, og de skal gå langt. Det er ikke noe buss. Det er ikke noe T-bane. Og så går de, vet du. Og hvis de skulle gå som vi gjør på sentralstasjonen, så ville de dø, altså. Du vet at de går, vet du. Og de må, og da har du dette med det funksjonelt praktiske, og det skjønne, det vakre. Fordi hvis ikke de bruker kroppen og finner punktet på rytmen sin, så vil de ikke klare å gå 100 meter. Altså prøv å balansere en bok. Jeg greier det ikke på hodet. Så går det, ikke sant? Og så bruker de et skyv i hoftene sine. Og hoftene danser. Og de beveger seg, vet du. Med et balansepunkt som er sånn at du hjertet ditt nesten stopper, altså, for det er et skjønnhetsuttrykk så enormt. Og samtidig er det verdig. Og det er funksjonelt. Det er såre praktisk. Det er hverdag. Ikke sant? Dette må de. Ellers så kan de ikke overleve. Men så tror jo vi her i Norge at vi kan overleve med å bevege oss sånn. Men mitt poeng er at det kan vi ikke. Vi fryses langsomt ut av våre egne liv, selv om vi fremdeles altså, i fysiologisk forstand lever. Vi trenger også å kunne, om vi ikke går som borer og kvinner, kunne utfolde litt mer av det. Altså. For å kjenne at nå var det faktisk jeg som lever. At måten du går på, selv om du skal altså, ta toget til Gjøvik, på sentralstasjonen, at det gir meg nærvær, altså.
People walking is a sort of a dance. You know, it can be considered as a sort of a dance. Generally, when people dance, you can see it on the face of dancers. They have a very controlled, relaxed look on their face. But the body, the movements are quite complex. Hands, hips, legs are all doing different rhythms. But there's a center of stability because they're hearing the inside beats or the hidden beats. Somewhere in their body, they've got it. And I think it's the same with when they walk. They're centered. Basically, dancing and carrying things on your head coordinate your body. And if you're well coordinated, you can actually do lots of things at the same time. It's a psychological problem, actually, that Europeans are facing. They're decentered. They don't know exactly, they don't have any stable center. And lots of neuroses get carried over into the body, into the musculature. And you can see this when you take a European who is in a straitjacket, as you say, marching up and down like a robot. in Africa they still have a very strong street life. You meet people on the street, or the village street, or the city street, and you're extremely aware of everybody, because everybody on the street is a possible friend or person you might meet or talk to, because it's not just a question of getting from A to B, it's all the things that can happen in between. In Europe, we actually don't like people being close to us. What happens in the crowd is people just ignore each other. They pretend that the other person isn't there. You've just got your destination in your mind, a determination to stride off as efficiently as possible to your destination without talking to anybody and seeing anybody. And of course, you often bump into people, because when you have lots of people who are pretending to each other that nobody's around, well, I find this in Europe. I'm always knocking into people, and they look so stunned when you actually touch them, because like it should never have happened, and yet they're not really aware of other people, or they're aware but they've cut it out, because the whole point about being on the street in Europe is only to get from A to B, the efficiency principle, you know, just walking, marching off to some place.
Det er veldig viktig å holde skikkelig klart for seg forskjellen på takt og puls, altså. Takt, det er mekanisk. Det er soldater. Dang, dang, 1, 2, 1, 2, en støvel og en sko, badam, badam, sånn. Mens rytme, vet det er noe helt annet, og den er litt uregjerlig. Du har en puls som går, som du sier, underforstått som de har i Afrika. Det er det vi kaller pulsen. Det lange draget. Og innenfor den pulsen så har du rytmen, altså livet innenfor pulslaget. Og det er liksom vår pust, vårt åndedrett inn i livet. Og så går den. På musikers må vi snakker om groove, da. Finne grooven.
My man don't love me. He treats me oh so mean. My man, he don't love me. He treats me awful mean. He's the lowest man that I've ever seen. When he starts in to love me, he is so fine below.
hvis vi ikke får tak i den, så blir vi stående på utsiden. Vi blir stående på traktene. Livet går der. Livet har jo puls og rytme. Så blir vi stående ved siden av. Vi er ikke i det. Og jeg har følelsen av det er bare følelsen av, jeg registrerer jo at det veldig ofte skjer da, at vi så å si er usynkroniserte med pulsen og rytmen i livet rundt oss. Og det er ødeleggende. Vi blir musisk utviklingshemmede. Tenk deg mange som skal holde en tale på en fest, står der med manus. Ikke sant, blar fram et eller annet som de har. Altså. Og de er jo fryktelig glad i han som skal feires da. Bestekameraten kanskje, står det sånn, tar de opp også. Kjære jubilant, det er en stor glede for meg og min kone å få være til stede her i dag. Ikke sant? Men de er jo ikke til stede. De står der og leser på en sånn måte at det kunne like gjerne vært på månen. Og dette kan vi ta fra felt til felt, og vi invalidiserer mennesker. I Afrika blir rytme livsviktig. Jeg mener, hvis du ikke kjenner rytmen, så mister du fingeren når du står på kornet ditt.
When I first saw fufu being pounded, I could never understand how people literally never got their fingers broken, ever. I think the reason for it is this, that, okay, if you decide to put your hand straight into the silence, or the gap, the upbeat, it's a pretty huge area in between which you can play around with, because the thing is only touching the starch for a fraction of probably a microsecond. And all the rest of the time, the stick is going up or coming down, so they've got a very big awareness of the silence. Because in their music they're aware of space and silence. So it's not a difficult thing for them to do this with fufu, which is very much like music. Here, folk music basically means everyday music, or rhythms that people, when they're hammering, doing work with hammers and saws and everything, they often put rhythms into them. Policemen put rhythms into, you know, their traffic directing. In all sorts of funny places you find rhythms here. And it's a spill-off from this idea that there should be no separation between music and normal life. There's a saying, by the way, in Ghana, somebody who isn't musical in Ghana would be like somebody who couldn't talk. They'd be dumb, you know, like a dumb person. You feel a bit sorry for them. One of the foundations of materialism is efficiency. Efficiency allows no embellishments. You only have to do something exactly as it should be done. You don't have to do any extra embellishment to make it a little bit better. Or, no, you should do no unnecessary thing. Now, a lot of these rhythms are, in terms of efficiency, are necessary. They don't help you hammer a nail any better, but they give pleasure to the person nailing the nail or hammering the nail. But that's not considered in the European context.
Nå er jeg redd for å skulle romantisere det vi ser i Afrika. Men jeg har bare skjønt at skal jeg makte å dra denne svære hoven opp så mange timer hver dag, skal jeg stå og stampe maisen, som er så tungt arbeid, med utpust og innpust. Så må jeg ha rytmen, så greier jeg det ikke. De blir på en måte ikke mekanisk effektive, de blir musisk effektive. De utløser maksimalt hva de har av feeling for å kunne overleve. På den måten oppstår jo ikke bare kultur, men kunst. Kunstuttrykk, for det blir vakkert også, vet du. Det vi ser når de står der og stamper marsen sin. Det blir enormt vakkert. Tror du de går i disse fargene, disse fargesprakende tøyene sine? Bare for å vise seg fram, om det skulle komme noen fra Europa nå, eller en som skulle kjøpe stoffer til Paris. Fargene er en måte å overleve på. Det er en måte å kalle musisk effektivitet, men vi har den mekaniske effektiviteten. Det er det handler om. Denne lille guddommelige skikkelsen som er inni hvert eget menneske. Det ligger en liten sånn tornerose inni der på en måte som man må kysses, og som da kommer til uttrykk. Denne strengen i deg som brrr, der står det altså. Og når du kjenner den, da lever du. Det er det musiske. Denne muligheten i deg til nærvær, til tilstedeværelse, skapende tilstedeværelse i eget liv.
Listening to the unmistakable voice of Youssou N'Dour, it is not hard to understand why this unassuming musician has achieved global success working with the likes of Peter Gabriel, Sting, and most recently Nena Cherry. Yet 30 years ago, the most heard African music in Europe was not from Senegal, but from Ghana, as Teddy Osei's band Osibisa hit London with 3 top 10 hits. Key to Osibisa's success was the use of traditional Ghanaian musical elements. Palm wine guitar style, being demonstrated here by Tio Jazz, guitar teacher at Legon, is one of the dominant components of high life music which Osibisa adapted and blended into their unique sound. Professor John Collins, music historian and author of the seminal work on High Life music, High Life Times, is certain that for a modern Ghanaian band to achieve the international success of Osibisa, it must incorporate these traditional musical components into its style.
If you look at the world music scene at the moment, this is African music being sold to people in America, Europe and Japan. The world music fans, they want indigenous African music. By that I don't mean traditional drumming only, but high life, Afrobeat, juju music that's played with real musicians, real drummers and real horn players. In Ghana, that's what we're not playing anymore. Everything's being replaced by the computer. We don't need drummers, we don't need horn players. And it's very, very difficult to package this material in Ghana and sell it abroad. And I would say that in the last 15 years, not one single piece of Ghanaian music that we know as Burger High Life or now Hip Life has crossed over to the international market. Whereas people like Yusundua, Salif Keita and others are selling like hotcakes. As I said, the African music industry is generating $1.5 billion a year for world music fans, but we've got to produce a product for the world music fans, which is music played with live musicians. The world music fans don't want to hear technological or technopop coming out of Africa, played on computers.
This analysis of the problems facing the Ghanaian musical industry is echoed by many involved in the business. A prominent Ghanaian musician of international acclaim recognizes that Ghanaian imitation of Western computerized music styles such as hip-hop will never be exportable to the UK or the US.
How do you think bands which are playing in Ghana can help get successful outside of Ghana?
Unless we do our own thing. Because let's face it, Americans, they do their own thing there. So when you do the American thing to take it to America, you have problems.
Yeah.
When you do the European thing and take it to Europe, or like a reggae, even they don't do it right here, you have problems. The reggae with tea and all that, you have problems.
You need an individual voice, you think?
You need individual voice. You need authentic voices. And you need to incorporate the African stuff, where, you know, if they wake you up from slumber, you just be going, you know your stuff. But to imitate, that won't go down well in the world. So I would advise all the young people that let's go back to the roots. Just do the authentic African rhythms and put your voices in and add some whatever modern, but your basics should be your motherland music, and you make it over there. That's what the whole world is waiting for. But what we're doing at this moment, you know, I'm afraid it stays here.
Doing their own thing is exactly what gained Osibisa international recognition. However, they were aided by the state of the music scene in Europe. In the early 70s, there was no contemporary music dance scene in the UK. Rock music was emerging as a style not to be danced to, but to be listened to. Eventually, this style would result in the stadium rock of the 80s. John Collins explains how Osibisa were able to exploit this dearth of dance music.
Osibisa filled a vacuum in the dance music scene in Europe in the early 70s. And what really knocked Osibisa out of the European charts in the late 70s was the coming in of disco and reggae music, which are dance forms. But it's still, at the same time, it has to be recognized that they did a huge contribution for Ghanaian music and for Ghana as ambassadors. And on top of that, they were awarded, I think it was the MBE. They got an award from the Queen because they made £1 million in taxes for the British government, not for the Ghanaian government. Now, what we have to do today is to create an Osibisa type of phenomenon. And it's not difficult because in Osibisa's day, there was no world music. It didn't exist. They filled a vacuum in the dance scene that I mentioned. But now we have this huge African music market. They call it world music. It's $1.5 billion a year. Ghana is not represented on it at all.
Were Ghana to be gaining the percentage of this $1.5 billion revenue that its population merits, there would be a potential windfall of $50 million. It is not surprising, therefore, that the government is starting to show an interest in the music industry. The Deputy Chairman of the National Commission on Culture explains what the Commission is doing to encourage the development of indigenous music in Ghana.
interventions was to invite Osibisa. Osibisa band still has live percussion. So we did a workshop for musicians at the Boys Center. Our expectation is that those who were exposed to the workshop will take some hints as to the way forward, so that we don't lose our cultural identity.
Some would argue that Ghana's cultural identity is not being sufficiently promoted on the radio stations. Gabi Ajite, head of music and drive time presenter at Joy FM, argues that the problems of the music industry are more deep-rooted. He again regards the success of Osibisa with some nostalgia and recognizes that breaking into the international music market today presents any promising musician with a considerable challenge.
If you take it with about 20 years back or 30 years back in the 70s, Osibisa was doing something that nobody was doing. They called it Afro rock and Afro pop and Afro high life. They took it out there. It was marketable. It was marketed as, this is African music. This is not what we're playing in Europe or what we're playing in the States. It's African music. Now, the very few artists from Africa that are able to continue with this, and this is because it's been dictated by the UK markets over the American market, the external markets. They decide, well, this is what we want to hear from Africa, so this is what we are playing. If there was an African playing, fusing, let's say, reggae, pop, and jazz, and said, well, this is my blend of music, it would take quite a while to be accepted and put on the shelf that this is African music. I mean, if you go into foreign music shops, into HMV, into Virgin, you find the record shop has a very small segment for African music, very small.
One name that you will see in that small section of HMV marked world music is that of Youssou N'Dour. Yet it is inconceivable that in a continent of 600 million people, only one man has the talent to break into an international market. The question that must be asked is, where is Ghana? One establishment which is doing its best to encourage the development of indigenous music styles crucial to the export of Ghanaian music is the University of Ghana. Whereas the popular perception of the music department might be that it trains students in areas of classical music only, nothing could be further from the truth. The School of Performing Arts and the International Centre of African Music and Dance are committed to preparing students for a life in the hard world of the music industry. On top of this is a commitment to the education of musicians in indigenous musical styles. The head of music, Dr. Anku, explains the importance of this aspect of the university's work.
If the students understand how our traditional music is put together, if they're able to understand how our forefathers have been able to put music like Adoa or Kundum or Agbaja together. You know, Western music concept lasts about 2 hours, and it's okay. African music can last for a whole night. What it is in African music that makes it so fresh for such a long duration of performance? If we're able to discover these things, we are better musicians. We can put these ideas in any kind of music, whether it is creative music or whether recreating traditional music. So I think that the experience of learning from the tradition is very, very important in revitalizing us as musicians.
For this reason, the practical elements of tuition are high on the agenda at Legon. Walking through the grounds of the university, there is evidence of the commitment to practical tuition wherever one goes. As well as guitar and xylophone instruction, drumming lessons feature regularly. John Collins, himself a lecturer at Legon, explains how the university is trying to redress a recent decline in the importance with which music is viewed as part of the education system.
Music hasn't taken a priority in the education system. And in fact, in the late 80s, with the JSS, SSS reorganization of the schools, music was taken out. It's no longer a core subject in the SSS syllabus. And in the junior secondary schools, music has to be taught with, I think it's drama and dance as popular culture studies or cultural studies, which means effectively that music has sort of been demoted in the system. So the educational system, too, in the last few years has demoted music, so that we're not getting children going through the schools who are being educated in music. And the reason is simply that I think people in authority don't realize potential of music for making money for Ghana. So it's given a low priority.
John Collins was in fact only brought to the university 5 years ago as part of the shift in the focus of the department towards popular music. Since then he has taken on a crucial role in the education of students in the traditional Adowa and Abuja rhythms, which are fundamental to the high life music in which he specialises. Dr. Anku is keen to stress the way in which popular music is one of the many different aspects of music tuition which the department teaches, as part of their ongoing commitment to preparing their students for a life in the music industry.
There are other aspects of our training which have to do with composition, theory and analysis, orchestration. We also study African music as well as other aspects of Western music.
John Collins here demonstrates with the aid of a children's toy the inherently different approaches to rhythm which Europeans and Africans have. Whereas a European would get one rhythm out of this rattle, John Collins shows how a Ghanaian presented with this toy would instinctively get two. By bringing a drum into the equation, he in fact manages to get 3 rhythms out of it.
This is a simple rhythm that a European would play.
By turning away from these traditional and distinctive rhythmical aspects of Ghanaian music, Ghana is missing out on its chunk of the $1.5 billion world music market. Yet surprisingly, those learning these rich rhythms from Ghana are in the large part foreigners.
Well, I don't worry about that very much because music is supposed to be shared. We are interested in American music, Americans are interested in Ghanaian music. I think that's very, natural. People like to, things that are not their own. They like to partake in things that are not their own. That's just human nature. So I don't have any problem with that at all. I think that by their presence here, our students will realize the importance of their own music and begin to delve more into that and, bring it up to a height that will make impact on our own country.
Certainly, the School of Performing Arts, despite the large number of foreign students, is primarily committed to preparing young Ghanaians for a life in the music business. Indeed, this is arguably more true now than ever before, because now there's a lot for Ghanaian musicians to harvest from high life. Realizing this, the University of Ghana is now introducing their students to the rich seeds of high life music.
With Dr. Anku, the new director of the music school, he's also bringing in electronics and process of art in which we introduce students to people from the music industry. And the whole reason for this is that we've realized that there's not enough jobs in the teaching curriculum for our students. They can't all become music teachers. They're going to have to work in radio, recording studios and so on. So they need to be exposed and taught about things like digital technology, popular music, copyright laws and so on.
Chris Ankra is one figure, along with the arranger Stan Plange and Musica president Sidiku Bwari, who has been brought in to lecture to students on the business side of show business. Through these process of art lectures, the students are taught how to avoid the potential pitfalls of music promotion and distribution. It is hoped that through this training, they may go on to reap the high life harvest. Nat Brew is one musician who is returning to his roots and using the traditional elements of Ghanaian music to influence his own brand highlight. He has started to have some success abroad, but to build on this success, he needs the help of record companies to promote his music. Chris Anker explains how the record companies have been failing musicians for the last 40 years.
Before the demise of the industry just after independence, we had proper structures in place with proper record companies, A&R people, and they developed the repertoire. They directed the creativity. Now, when the industry collapsed, it started with the musicians doing what they do best, just playing music. And they did their own thing without the involvement of any record company trying to create a repertoire that would have both local and international appeal. And this can be reversed when the companies take an active role in, working on the creativity and repertoire development, which is usually what is done in the developed countries.
A record company to take an active role in his development would certainly help Natbru to achieve international success comparable to Youssou N'Dour. But in the current music climate, marketing and advertising are also of utmost importance. Gabi Ajite explains how attitudes towards promotion need to change for Ghanaian musicians to succeed in the UK.
That's got to do with promotion, packaging, and of course the marketability of the artists. Some artists just don't see themselves as professionals, and they don't see themselves as marketable products. So they feel it's okay to go to the studio, record an album, put it on the shelf, and that's it. Not exploit the possibility of marketing into Ghana is surrounded by 54 countries. 3 sides, 54 countries on the sea to the other. So I mean, basically, you need to look at, is it marketable in Togo? Is it marketable in Burkina Faso? Is it marketable further on? Are you prepared to go out there to promote it? Because I mean, everyone goes to promote your album. You have to go and promote your album, support it with live performances, with interviews, strike up deals with foreign companies for distribution deals so it can be distributed. But we're not on that frame of thinking yet. Some musicians are not into that frame of thinking of, I can do this outside. They think, well, if I make my music here and it's big in Ghana, somehow it should go outside. Somebody should pick it up.
With only a young music industry, it is inevitably going to take time for this side of the trade to catch up with the blossoming material side. This means that Ghanaian musicians should take their trade seriously when it comes to contracts, concerts and promotion. Ebo Hawkson is confident that things are getting better.
Some of our musicians are becoming more knowledgeable about the industry. A little bit of ignorance also has been part of the problem. You don't know what kind of contracts to sign. So you sign away your rights, and you find that your music is converted into other use, and you have no authority, you have no right to deal with it. But now, gradually, they are learning that the first step is to have a good contract with your producer, be he executive or otherwise.
One area in which many believe Ebo Hawkson and the government could be doing a great deal more is in the promotion of live music, fundamental to the success of recorded music. Without an environment of live music, it is inevitable that synthesized forms of music will flourish, and as has been said repeatedly, such music cannot succeed abroad. The musician Charles Anwar explains how one aspect of government policy is stifling the development of live music in Ghana.
But I think another problem is also the taxes on the musical equipment. The government need to do a lot about that. We need to have waivers on the musical equipment to enable the businessmen to be able to buy musical equipment and then give it over to the musicians who intend to do the live performances. And also with the club owners and so on. We need to cut down all the taxes, as well as the promoters, the private promoters and people like the TV stations, the radio stations who intend doing a lot of promotional gigs.
Where there is live music available, it is invariably popular. The rare places in Accra where live high life can be heard are regularly packed with both locals and tourists enjoying live high life. And as Ebo Hawkson recognises, a strong live music industry and a subsequently strong recorded music industry benefits a huge range of people.
Basically, many people are getting employed through music performance. If you take that one person composes and then the music goes to the studio, technicians in the studio are employed because somebody has composed a song. So that we have the producer, and then you get out of the studio, you have sellers, those who sell the music. You have artists who design the sleeve or the inlay cards of cassettes. And so a whole lot of people depend on music for their livelihood. And we think that the national economy gains a lot from income that is generated by the music industry. But we need to do a specific study in order to establish the quantum, how much actually we are getting from music performance, so that we can make a good argument that since GDP has so much being contributed from the music sector, it will be worthwhile reducing taxes on the importation of musical equipment.
Until measures are taken to protect live music, it seems that places where live bands are featured will be fighting against the tide which threatens to sweep away the once flourishing live music scene. The last time when there was a truly flourishing live music scene was in the 1970s. It is surely no coincidence that it was in that environment that Ghana's most successful musical export was born, Osibisa. But the climate is very different now.
Yeah, one problem that we're facing in Ghana from the point of view of foreign tourists is that there are very few places where you can hear live music, particularly live high life. In the 70s, there were dozens and dozens of places where you could hear high life music played by a live band. But now the fashion is to mime or lip sync to a pre-recorded cassette, as done by people who play hip life. And I think this is also affecting the tourist industry.
Traditional Ghanaian rhythms and the live music situation stands both as a hope for future prosperity and a testimony to past success. Kiki Jan, one of the former shining stars of Osibisa, cannot stay away from the unique experience of live performance. The crowd is always hugely receptive to his renditions of the 70s classics, such as this track, The Coffee Song. As he plays on, we must hope that we are not seeing the last throes of the last success story of Ghanaian music. Rather may he stand as a sign of the enduring popularity of good music that means that when the Ghanaian music industry has overcome its legislative hurdles, the records of Ghanaian artists will once more be seen in the record stores of London, Paris and New York.
Politician's daughter wasn't even dollar and was straight, got the